Dag allemaal en welkom bij deze speciale Ignite-editie van Maarten's Cloud Journaal. Mijn naam is Maarten Ekkels, ik ben CTO bij Portiva en Microsoft MVP. En met het Cloud Journaal probeer ik jullie op regelmatige basis bij te houden wat Microsoft zoal uitbrengt op het gebied van Microsoft Cloud, Office 365, Security en Azure. En ik heb een paar maanden lang eigenlijk geen nieuwe afleveringen uitgebracht. Mijn excuses daarvoor, maar het goede voornemen is om juist nu na Ignite, want we hebben zo waanzinnig veel mooie aankondigingen gehad, om weer flink de frequentie op te voeren en met nieuwe afleveringen te komen. Het is wel zo dat ik deze aflevering verder in het Engels ga doen, want ik heb twee gasten vandaag aan tafel zitten. We zitten hier op Ignite in de podcast studio van Microsoft en mijn twee gasten die spreken Engels. So from here on we will continue in English. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you well.
Benjamin Niaulin, Jussi Roine, thank you very much for being here in Maarten's Cloud Journaal. Maybe you guys could introduce yourselves before we move on, and I will ask you all kinds of difficult questions.
Well, thank you. My name is Benjamin Niaulin. I work at a company called ShareGate. We're in the Office 365 and Azure space, and we build products.
Cool.
And my name is Jussi Roine. I'm based in Helsinki, Finland, Azure MVP, Microsoft Regional Director as well, and I spend most of my time in the Azure space nowadays.
All right, excellent. Thanks very much. So, how's it been so far, Ignite? It's Wednesday today, end of the afternoon, so we've had a couple of days. What do you think of Ignite so far this year?
Exhausting.
Yeah.
Lots of announcements, lots of running around, lots of conversations, but very exciting nonetheless.
Exactly. We already started on Sunday with the pre-day things. And after Sunday, your head is full of all of the announcements and the upcoming features. And then you really start with the keynotes on Monday. So in a way, it's exhausting, but it's also staggering the amount of sessions, about 2,000 sessions, and the amount of people you meet. And we still have one more day to do.
Yes. I think it's the biggest Ignite ever, right? 28,000 people, I heard.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's
incredible.
Pretty big, yeah.
Incredible, yeah, yeah. What do you guys think of the new setup for the keynote? Because it was kind of different this year, right? They only allowed 3,000 people in, and everybody else had to watch the keynote somewhere else in another room.
Yeah, mixed feelings. I enjoyed the keynote in the format, so I think it was interesting to see Satya go to the floor, go to different locations, and try to present the various things in various locations. What I thought interesting was that it's called a vision keynote, which from my perspective, and though I had mixed feelings in the past sometimes where it went a little bit too quantum computing for me, but maybe it felt a more technical keynote. We talked about products and features, which is great, but I expected it to see it maybe further in the keynotes that come after Satya, and get a better glimpse of where does Satya want to take the company and the world of Microsoft and everyone around it. What did you think?
This year at Build, we already had the same sort of setup. The 3,000 people, 3,000 chosen ones get to be at the keynote room, and I like it. But at the same time, the keynote is shorter now than it used to be. It used to be like 3 hours. Now it's 1.5 or maybe 2 hours. And the challenge that I have with this now is the vision keynote. It fits quite well in the agenda. It kind of sets the overall theme, as well as gives this far-reaching vision on this is what we think about quantum, this is what we think about ethical AI, and those topics often are too far for majority of the people for now, especially for people thinking, should I migrate my mailboxes to the cloud or not? But the challenge that I have is that with the technical keynotes, we had 4 technical keynotes, yep. and I rarely meet people who say, I will only strictly do this one technology. I need to do SharePoint, I need to do a little bit of Azure AD and security. Now you have 4 keynotes and you can only attend one, then you have to review the recordings for the 3 others. And that's a challenge.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. It's not just security or just Azure or just Office 365, yep. Right? It's always a combination of the things. Yeah. What did you think about the announcements in the keynote? Was there anything in particular that stood out? I think a big part of the keynote was about Azure, so you can see where Microsoft's priorities are, right? From
I was going to say
time.
Minecraft Earth, but
yeah. So for the people who didn't see the keynote, you should at least watch the last part because Satya Nadella was playing Minecraft, a 3D, an augmented reality version of Minecraft.
yeah.
And I think he killed a
rabbit.
there as well. Yeah, exactly. What else do you think?
It was heavily geared for Azure for sure. And I found it interesting that they spent quite a bit of time on big data. So Azure Synapse, which combines the classic data warehousing with big data analytics into one cloud product. And a lot of the data people I spoke to after the keynote, they were super amped that finally we're getting this. And I didn't realize there's this missing piece in there.
Yeah.
But it used to be like 2 or 3 products.
Yeah.
So that was one. And the second one that I found interesting, that we spent a lot of time during the keynote on Azure Stack Hub and Azure Stack Edge.
Yeah.
So the on-premises hybrid sort of hardware plus software style services that typically start from 200,000 level investments. So it's not something that we just decided, yeah, let's get 2 of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They showed some devices as well, right? That was interesting. They even
brought the Surface
Yeah,
laptops.
exactly.
Yeah. What I found very interesting is I'm not as surprised when I saw Synapse, and it's not because we saw it before. It has nothing to do with that. It was really from a lot of conversations we have as a product company with Gartner, with the analyst, and we look at what's happening in the market. We see in top position of market opportunities and problems that people are living around big data, around specifically 2 categories, analytics and insights, which they put in 2 different information or market opportunities. And they're really at the top of everyone's minds right now in terms of we moved to the cloud, we adopted new ways of work, we're okay.
Yep.
There's challenges still, but now people are wondering, I'm in the cloud, I have tons of data everywhere now. Tons. We all have tons of data. And organizations now are all software companies. So what do we do with that data to provide better experiences to our customers or to our employees, if that's the case, especially for larger organizations? So I'm not surprised to see it. I wouldn't be surprised to see more and more products to tap into analytics around what's happening in our organizations or with the data that we have, and to see more things around insights as well that we can have based on all that disconnected data and bringing it together. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, and most of that data that we have is unstructured data,
Yeah.
right? And it's unrelational data, from non-relational databases. And I think that was what was really appealing about this new product, that the fact that you can bring structured and unstructured data together. And they ended with a demo that you even can then connect Power BI to the same data set of unstructured and structured data and get your insights. So
Absolutely.
that is becoming
And
important.
to keep in mind that it was part of the Vision keynote, so maybe 2-3 years ago we had something in a keynote that said, this is the data lake, and for a lot of people they were like, yeah, I don't really need it. But nowadays you go to customers, everybody needs a data lake.
Of course.
Who have a lot of data. So maybe 2 years from now, we are looking at Synapse and similar solutions that it's business as usual.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I found what I myself found very, very nice in the keynote, and it didn't get as much attention in Satya Nadella's keynote, but it did afterwards, was the new knowledge network that they're building in Office 365.
Project Cortex.
Project Cortex, indeed. And what was funny is that we heard, because we had some MVP calls and we had seen some of that, and it had a different name. And we heard from people that from inside Microsoft that they decided to change the name only a couple of days before the keynote, right?
Wow.
So the Project Cortex was a brand new name, and it was just thought up a couple of days before Ignite really started. But what it is really about is, so you can finally, they use machine learning, they use the power of the cloud behind it to accumulate data, to structure data, to automatically create topic cards in your company. They just dig through your information, your content, and try to find patterns in there, and then instead of just the people card, suddenly you have a topic card around certain words, certain topics that show you, hey, this is what we mean with that inside our organization.
Yeah. It was very interesting. I mean, I went a couple of weeks ago at a Microsoft event, and they presented us the product. So we went a little bit more deeper, I guess, into the demos. And there's a couple of things I find they really went over quickly here. It looks like they went with long-term. Where is this going to go for the messaging at Ignite? While they start with a couple of customers to experience this. But I found it extremely interesting. I love the use of applied AI, which is to not just talk about AI, but actually build something that brings value to customer.
Yep.
And in this case, as we saw, it suggests topics based on what it thinks is a topic wherever you are in a Word document and your emails. But what's good about it is the machine teaching part of it, where the end user gets to say, yes, it's true, or no, it's not true, which allows Microsoft to build a better and better engine over time. So there was that part, as you say, the topic cards automatically created and all these integrations. But what I found extremely interesting as well is the ability to create sort of document models that will automatically extract entities from documents. So we have this, I use similar products that are not from Microsoft for our receipts, where you take a picture, but in this case it will be your documents. You can train a model. It will automatically detect entities inside of your document, extract the values, and create columns in your SharePoint document libraries so that you can then create Power Automate flows and go even beyond that, which in honesty, I absolutely love where this is going. I think many people try to tackle knowledge management, and they might get away with working with it.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a topic that it has been a topic for as long as I've been in IT. Right? Since I started working in IT, I always had conversations with customers about knowledge networking, about finding knowledge, sharing knowledge, and now finally we're getting somewhere where
maybe the AI is finally going to be the bridge to get that. What did you think?
I heard somebody mentioning with Project Cortex that you should approach the thinking in that it's sort of a dynamic Wikipedia that is powered by AI.
Yeah.
And I think that nicely captures the essence of it. So I'm not clear on this because I didn't attend those sessions that much this week, but if and when we get Project Cortex running in our tenants in the future, do we still need managed metadata then?
Yes.
Why?
So bear with me. It sounds to me that managed metadata is coming, the modern managed metadata, and they explain this, that the reason that they modernized it and the reason they invested in modernized managed metadata was for Project Cortex. So I'm not exactly 100% how it's going to tie in, but it sounded to me like Project Cortex, modern managed metadata were awfully close together in the offering that they were bringing. Yeah. Now, they did present automatic classification so that it will automatically tag, and I don't think anyone likes to add metadata manually. We preached it, but no one really likes it. So hopefully there will be a person that's able to craft the managed metadata, what keywords we want, which ones are important, and then have the automation be built based on that, perhaps. I'm just not sure that managed metadata will be manually used as much, but perhaps it will be a centralized teaching area for the engine. But I don't know. It's a good question nonetheless.
I'm getting flashbacks from 10 years ago when we had enterprise keywords.
Yes.
And nobody knew what to do with this. So it sounds to me like we could be benefiting from the modern managed metadata with Project Cortex in custom solutions as well as in Project Cortex.
Yes.
And they gave us a sneak preview of what the modern managed metadata, the term store, will look like. And it's not just a modernization of the term sets themselves, which already looks really good. But now they're going to provide us analytics as well. So the front page of the new term store, the modern managed metadata, shows you where
your topics are, how they're used.
Exactly. How many times are they being used? Which is the top one? Things like that.
Yeah, so you should see them. I think what I understood is that they're tied together as the topics being created for the Project Cortex that are dynamically generated are actually keywords, or the topics are the keywords, and the information stored in the SharePoint Knowledge Management Center is actually closely tied and centralized to the modern managed metadata.
Yep. Yep.
So do I then, when I use Microsoft Search, the new search engine, in the future I would anticipate then that when I do a search for the keyword, it would perhaps bring those topics automatically as refiners or as topic cards.
With the right people that have knowledge for it, the right documents and the right conversation, I think we're going in a great direction if we get what we saw on pictures.
Yeah.
So what's the timetable promise on when do we get the first bits?
It's in private preview now, and they said that they want to
public preview in the first or second half of 2020.
No, I think
first half
public preview, and then second half GA.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they're aiming for. They don't have an answer yet to the licensing question.
But it will be premium.
It will be premium. That's what we heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And talking about search, because we saw some cool stuff about search as well. Microsoft announced that we will be able again finally to customize the search result pages. So that's interesting. But what we also saw was the fact that we are now finally combining search from different Office 365 products in one view. So
finally
we have a document, and finally you can see not just what happened in SharePoint around the document, but also what happened in Teams or in Yammer or whatever around that document.
Yes, but I think I'm not sure if they cheated a little bit on the demo because they focused on that OneDrive experience.
That's
so
true.
I think we talked about this, but I'm wondering if for now it's going to be all the conversations around a document, but on a personal level. So your one-to-one chats with your OneDrive, with your emails that are personal, that you have email attachments, instead of a document that's in a Teams team with all the... We'll see. I'm curious to see the actual real live production story for that.
Yeah, that's true. But Bing Enterprise, I think it's called, there is something, Microsoft Search, you can already bring it to Bing and integrate it. And in Europe that doesn't really work because we don't use Bing in Europe. And we all use Google. But I know here in the US, Bing is almost as big as Google. So it's being used a lot here in the US. But if you go to the enterprise version, you can already see your Office 365 results in there.
Yeah.
And it already shows Teams conversation, Yammer conversations, everything in one search result.
Very nice.
So, yeah, that's very nice. Yeah. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. And in terms of Azure, what have you seen that you really like?
There's a lot, and when I was going through the massive list of announcements for Azure, the challenge is probably in there that there's so many services in Azure, about 200 or so, and all of them or most of them are receiving updates continuously. So now during Ignite, I went through all the announcements and I kind of shortlisted all the interesting ones that I figured I need to look in depth in this, and I got up to about 55 different things. So some of those are like a small button that this will be available. Okay, finally we're getting this. And other ones are something large. So some of the big ones was Azure Arc.
Yeah.
And
that was part of the keynote as well.
That's part of the keynote, and I'm trying to grasp the concept, and the idea with Azure Arc is that through Azure Portal, you can manage and govern services that are not part of Azure. So that could be your private data center, your on-premises data center. It could be AWS. It could be a bunch of VMs sitting someplace not in a data center. And you can reach to those, and then as part of the keynote, they showed that let us provision a new platform as a service SQL database from Azure Portal, but it will be provisioned in whatever else you're governing through Azure Arc. So it seems to me that Azure Arc is the hybrid management tool that is powered through Azure, and you don't need to get Azure Stack in on-prem.
Yeah.
And that will be interesting to see how big that's going to be in the future.
Very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And what I really like is that hybrid is no longer a word for cloud and on-prem, but now suddenly it has become a word to connect
Cloud and
different
cloud.
exactly,
Yes.
different cloud services.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
And another super small feature, but I know a lot of people have been expecting it, and I hope we're getting it soon, but it was announced this week, is that when you're hosting your web apps, old school people would say websites, but web apps are more hipster and nicer. When you're hosting your web apps in Azure, oftentimes you need to secure them so that you can use HTTPS. So you need a TLS certificate. And now the only options have been that you go to this one preferred partner and do the whole mambo jumbo with getting the certificate requests, private keys, the public keys, and figure out how it works. And now that will be automated, and those TLS certs will be free. So you can just go on your web and say,
nice.
please, I'd like to secure this done. And that's how it should have been 10 years ago.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And I think there was also an announcement where I'm more in the space of Azure Cost Management, so Azure Cost Management for CSPs as well, which is definitely was waited for.
Finally. Yes, yes.
so
we are a CSP partner.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
So that should give you visibility to, if you're a CSP partner and you have multiple customers that you're supporting, that you get visibility in all of their cost
which
management.
in the Azure Cost Management
Yes.
tool.
Yeah. So one more announcement that we heard that I would like to stipulate here is finally the release of private channels in Microsoft Teams. I think one of the most anticipated features ever in the Microsoft ecosystem. And now finally they announced it. It's G8 this week, and it's rolling out as we speak. There's a lot of tenants where you don't see it yet, but I asked one of the guys, or one of the program manager of the Teams team, if they are indeed rolling it out, and yes, they're rolling it out, and they expect it to land on every tenant within already a couple of weeks. So they think that it should be rolled out before the end of the month. So that's really nice. We finally have the private channels available.
So with private channels, as I understand it, and correct me when, not if I'm wrong, is that I can have an existing Teams team and a bunch of public channels, the default ones. And I want to create a private channel now, so I need to pick up a number of people. I want this, and this person to be part of my private channel. And it spins up a new SharePoint site collection, which is this special sort of type, so it doesn't surface in the M365 Admin Center or SharePoint Admin Center.
Correct.
But it's actually, and this is where we weren't sure anymore.
But I asked.
Okay.
And now I know.
Good for it. Let's go for it.
So we were thinking, if you create a separate site collection, would it create a separate group, modern group, Office 365 group as well? And the answer is no. They thought about it, and we talked about this.
Because we gave them extensive feedback on that.
Yeah, exactly. This was already a thing at the MVP Summit in March when we were in Redmond, all of us. And back then they were still thinking of creating some kind of child modern groups. Concept,
because groups are the membership providers.
Yeah.
So if you have a new list of people that should access to certain things, their thought was, well, every private channel would be an Office 365 group. We'd hide everything, give them access to the new SharePoint team site that would have been created for it, so that eventually, if this new private channel was to also use Planner, also use the mailbox that comes with the private channel, well, the logic would be there. But I'm glad to hear that they went with a...
Yeah, they will bring that other, all these other products that are now on a team level, they will bring that to channel levels as well, but they're going to do it in a different way. And I also asked, so where do you then keep track of the membership for the private channels?
Yeah.
Because you still have a different set of members.
Yeah.
And they have built their own rostering service in Microsoft Teams to keep track of the members.
So
of
it's
the private
within
channel.
Teams that there's a new user management thing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it was already there, apparently. They synced from the Office 365 groups.
Oh,
they
my
synced
goodness.
it to Teams.
This
and now
seems
they're
like
leveraging
a lot of...
the architecture is so
And with
interesting.
Sync, you always get this sort of real-time problems that you might add somebody, but they don't have access yet. So the sync might not be real-time.
We will have to see how that works. But so far, what I've seen, because apparently they're already using it, and on the Teams level, it seems quite instant or almost instant.
Makes
Instant
sense.
enough, at least.
But not necessarily
So-
for the provisioned
No.
service.
True.
Yeah.
True.
We'll see. It's an interesting engineering choice, but I'm sure, I mean, they have experts on this, and I'm sure it makes total sense. It seems very complicated.
Yeah, the interesting thing to create a separate site collection is that now it's far easier to move a channel from one team to another team. So that's not there yet, and they haven't said anything about when this will arrive, but I could think that this might come, that this
But for that, the public channels would have to have their own SharePoint site collection as well.
That is true. So who knows?
Who knows?
So another thing that I spotted, it wasn't on the Vision keynote, and I didn't have a chance to look at the Office 365 keynote yet, but somebody mentioned this briefly, that the Teams rich client, the Teams app, would get multimodal or multi-window opportunity.
Yes.
Is that available yet? Do we get to use it yet, or that's something that's coming?
It was announced, but I don't think it's out yet.
No, but it should be here this year as well.
Yeah.
So it's coming very soon. It's very soon.
Good.
Yes.
And it's really so finally you can pop out chat windows and have multiple chats
windows at the same
open
time.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Because that's often what you end up doing. You have these trusted colleagues, you have these continuous chats on the side, and that's one of the frustrations with Teams, is that where did I put the chat? And you have to hop back and forth. If I can now kind of pop out this chat and just keep it there for the whole day, that's the thing.
All right. Good. I think we've covered quite a
Well, I think there was
topics.
a big announcement I found. And also, I want to talk about the licensing choice for Project Cortex.
Yeah.
But more importantly, a mix of a couple of things. They just announced that they reach 100 million active users every month on SharePoint, which is pretty impressive.
Yes.
But when you combine it with the Q1 earnings report from Microsoft, you can see that they are growing in seats, but they're not growing as fast in revenue for Office 365. So what we can expect from now on, and this is a guess, but we're starting to see it, what we can see is the growing, how can I say this, new features that are going to come that are going to be premium.
Yes.
And a growing number of push towards growing your existing licenses, because now they have a lot of the customers, a lot of organizations worldwide on Office 365. And at the end of the day, they're a company and they're on the stock market and they're always looking to grow their revenue. So how will they take their existing customers and increase their revenue? And it's by adding new Project Cortexes and new premium features. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're listening to this that you will start seeing more and more premium packages coming in there. I don't know what your thoughts are around that, but I'm expecting to see that more and more.
I agree. You can already see it in the Power Platform licensing changes as well. Right, they did a big announcement in October, I think, around the new licensing schemas for the Power Platform, and they're moving things to the premium pricing products there as well. So yes, they are changing and rolling out more premium features.
But this is also something we already saw in the security space 2 years ago. So Microsoft would introduce EMS licensing back in the day. Then they would keep on adding new premium features, but they would only be available on EMS E5. And I kept expecting, when do we get EMS E7 or something else? But E5 keeps getting a lot of updates, and E3 might just get this basic version of something that a lot of companies desperately need.
As a teaser.
As a teaser. But then again, something that they also announced now is that multi-factor authentication and passwordless authentication, which is part of Azure AD, and it's been part of Azure AD Premium P1 license. I memorized all the licensing details. that security bit will now be available for all customers for free. So sometimes it goes the opposite direction as well.
But yeah, that's interesting. But I guess that's also because they realize that multi-factor authentication is such an essential thing to make the cloud a safer place.
Yep.
So
they have more to lose if there's a security problem than they have to a couple of extra licenses.
Yeah, I agree. It's the same with other security products that some security products, they are an added value and they will be part of the premium pricing again, but some things are really essential to make the cloud.
I'm expecting to see more and more add-ins, and not necessarily pushing people towards E3 or E5. It looks to me like they're starting to put, oh, you just want this, then just get this, or and being able to like by need, by desired outcome of an organization, just pay for that instead of, well, what exactly is E5? What am I getting? And having all these conversations to try and convince E5, you can say this is what Cortex brings you as a value add, and this is how much you can add it for.
And what is coming is that the business side of organizations, they will be able to purchase these add-ins without consent from the admins, from the IT side. They already announced it, right, for Power Apps and for Flow, or Power Automate, we should now say. But they withdrew that proposal because there was so much. They got so much backfire from the community.
Did they withdraw it?
Yes. They put out a new message in the message center, but they're not withdrawing it really. They're just saying,
extending it a bit.
Exactly. We heard your feedback. We understand. So we're not going to release it next week, but we're going to release it somewhere next year.
Okay.
So they're still going to do it.
Of course. And it makes sense, again, when we're talking about what that company, at the end of the day, they're just like your company or my company. We have objectives. We're trying to grow certain things. You make choices. And when you're targeting users and increase usage, you're trying to see how can I make sure that people that want to buy are not restricted by IT. And then IT will be more a guardian of the service and making sure that if it is bought and purchased or enabled, I have the tools required to govern everything to make sure that it's properly done rather than be the licensing purchaser.
Yes. Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting change.
I think one of the reasons why people kept pushing back quite hard on this self-service licensing is that we've received a major license update in February this year, another one now in October, and that's simply too fast to keep changing the rules of the game. And if you now introduce something that, okay, your users can buy even more without you really clearing your budget for next year, how do we actually play out this? It's too messy for now. So it makes sense to just delay that a bit and clean the table first.
And it's a governance thing too. I mean, I understand where Microsoft is going to, and in fact, I don't even think it's a very bad idea because it helps organizations also to prevent shadow IT because the business has the money. They have their own credit card, so let them buy their own services. And if they are not allowed to buy that inside your own Office 365 tenant, they will go somewhere else and they will buy it somewhere else. So from that perspective, I understand and I think it's a good idea. But on the other hand, it's always the IT departments that need to offer support. So the business buys a service, they are going to play around with Power Apps, they build their own Power Apps, new forms, they will automate those and create the flow behind it, and then something breaks, and what happens? They will go to support and ask them, can you help us fix this? So there's both sides. Yeah, exactly. There's both sides of the story.
So should we talk a bit about Yammer?
Yeah.
I'm totally out of the loop on that one. So what's happening with Yammer now?
It's the year of Yammer.
This year or next year?
Next year.
Okay, so
or this fiscal. No, essentially there was a big redesign, and jokes aside, it looks like finally after, I think it was the most expensive acquisition I've ever seen probably, but they've finally changed all the back-end stuff. They finally got up to speed, and looks like, and don't get me wrong, there's tons of usage of Yammer already. It's just in our space, we're typically in the collaboration space, SharePoint, portals, Teams. That's where we've always been more talking, but there's tons of people using Yammer in the communication, enterprise socials, and what they're doing now is that they're redesigned Yammer completely in terms of UX. They listened to a lot of the user requests from customers and what they wanted in terms of features, and they're delivering all of them very quickly, very together this year. And it looks like they got a lot of investment there. So clear redesign, and then features that the customers that are on Yammer have asked for, such as being able to ask questions on a live feed and a number of others. What did you think?
I agree. They're finally kind of picking up the pace in which they release new features. It looks nice. It looks crisp. So that's nice. Also, some of the stuff that they showed, for example, if you receive an email about a Yammer topic or an announcement, because you're still getting emails, you can actually respond to that topic right from the email.
Yes.
So you don't have to go to Yammer, but you can just from Outlook respond to that topic. So that's very nice. I like the Q&A feature. Mark an answer as the best answer. That's really,
and that's going to be now integrated to other pieces. So the goal is to merge all these experiences together. So we could see a Project Cortex topic page have at the bottom a Q&A from Yammer that's embedded there and have the marked as answer for the topic. So we're going to see that integration as well. It's in Outlook as well.
And Teams.
And Teams,
That's also interesting. So no longer competing products, well, maybe a little bit, but they're bringing them to each other as well. So you can now bring Yammer conversations into Teams and the other way around. And that's nice.
It'll be interesting to see. I think there'll still be a lot of confusion for a lot of people.
Yes.
And a lot of messaging and a lot of clarification. But if they do what they said they're going to do, and if they go at it rapidly, I think speed will be the key to continuously add improvements to Yammer, and I think they can succeed.
And there's one thing that I, sorry, but there's one thing that I don't really get from Microsoft. They finally made it possible to host your Yammer data in your own Office 365 region, because until, I don't know, a couple of months ago, couple of months ago, it was only possible to have your Yammer environment in the US, hosted in the US. Even if your...
Because it was built completely differently.
I know. So even if your Office 365 tenant is in Dublin, in the European data center, Yammer would be in the US. And finally it's possible to host your Yammer network in the European data region, but they don't allow, or they don't support external networks, they don't support Yammer users from the European data region to communicate on Yammer networks in the US region, and that's something that I don't get. So finally they brought it to us, to Europe, which is good from a GDPR perspective and from a data governance perspective. But it doesn't feel finished yet. They need to add features for that to work, I think.
And is it still so now? Because it used to be, when I last had a look at it, is that if you have an existing Yammer tenant in the US geo, that you cannot transfer that to the EU. So you can only provision a new one and somehow migrate stuff between those. And I think even though it's important, I think a lot of people who are already invested in Yammer, they don't see that as a necessity anymore, that it should be in the EU geo.
That is true, because they already made the choice.
Yes.
So they're apparently fine with the fact that the data is hosted in the US. That is true. So it's for the people who always considered it not okay for the data to be in the US. And now they can finally start using Yammer. Also, the whole new look and feel. It looks nice. So yes, there will be new customers onboarding on Yammer, but I think that the compatibility between the data regions isn't there yet. All right, there's some noise in the background going on, but well, let's hope that for our viewers and listeners it will be okay. All right. Any more topics you want to cover, guys?
I have, I mean, the floodgates of announcements that were made very quickly. Very easy to use conditional formatting for SharePoint that's user-friendly, that's not JSON code. I love that because I cannot code, so I think it's great if it's a user experience for people in lists and libraries that they're able to do that themselves. So that's coming out. The page diff that they showed for SharePoint, where you can see a comparison on the page live with green and red between versions of a page, what's been changed, integration with Word documents where you can leave comments and have integrated tasks within the Word document that go into your task as well, were very fun. Document libraries get power apps as well, so you can do that now, which has
the same as lists already have.
Same as lists already have. Now document libraries can have that as well. There was a number of things that right now don't come to mind, but there's a ton of announcements that are small, but together provide a really very more mature, more modern experience all around the collaboration space. That
I like the security trimming on the mega menu.
That
is coming. That's
audience
really
targeting.
Cool.
Very, very cool. I don't remember much else. Everything was so quick, so fast, but definitely exciting features there.
Yeah.
One thing here is the book of news, which was made available early this week.
Yeah.
So what I always recommend is that if you want to get this sort of big picture, download the book of news.
Yeah.
And from there you can easily pick up that these are the areas that I want to investigate more. And then you can dig through the blog articles and listen to the podcasts and really understand those specific topics. But there's hundreds of announcements. And one thing I want to raise from the Azure side is that it seems now that whenever we receive a new feature, new service in Azure in preview, it's only 2 to 3 months and it's then GA'd.
Yeah.
And that pace is staggering, because if you snooze, you sleep through that, suddenly you have 10 new services and ready for production.
Yeah. You really have to take care of the change management process. It has changed. It's no longer once every 3 years, or I know a couple of companies who even skipped a version, right? So they would only do a deployment once every 6 years.
Yeah.
And now it's just every week or almost every day new features are being released. Yeah.
All the time. Very exciting to be in that space. Do you, if I want to learn about Azure governance, do you know of any good books?
I've got one idea in mind. So there's this book that I did author with the kind support from ShareGate. It's available for free in digital, and if you happen to be here, it's also in printed. And the idea with this was that let's create a book that you can open, you can read through, that you don't fall asleep because it's governance, and also that it's short enough that you can consume all of the content in one sitting. So this is available. Let's make sure on the show notes or whatever that we can have the link available.
I will put the link there. I will put the link to the book of news that you mentioned there as well.
Absolutely.
So people can download it. And one more link, because I have something here that I would like to tell you, because we are recording this episode here at Microsoft Ignite, and Microsoft is giving away Surface earbuds for people. They do a sweepstake. And the URL, and that's why I have to look at this paper, but I will put it.
And the URL is case sensitive.
Well. Yeah, that's of course not true, but they wrote it here with camel case indeed. So if you go to aka.ms/podcast sweepstakes all together, and you can put it in lowercase, whatever if you want, then you can enter there and you can actually win Surface earbuds. So that's a cool giveaway by Microsoft. All right. Thanks very much, guys. Much appreciated. I hope you liked it as well. Dus we gaan nu weer afsluiten in het Nederlands. Bedankt voor jullie aandacht. En zoals ik al aangaf in het begin, ik ga weer vaker nieuwe afleveringen opnemen van het Cloud Journaal. Dus kijk graag uit naar de volgende aflevering. En ik hoop jullie dan ook weer te zien. Bedankt voor jullie aandacht. Dag.
Dankjewel.
Dankjewel.